Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and it's here. We're already barreling down towards Rivalry Week. It is week number 11, big week in college football, big games all over the country going on. It's from East Coast to West Coast, but my co-host, who doesn't really affiliate with any coast, Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
Paps, I'm doing great. I mean, I can't believe we're week 11. Things are chugging through. We have great matchups all over the place. We have the second, release of the college football playoff rankings. Not much change in the top six, top seven. But a lot's on the line as we go forward, and I'm looking forward to diving into this week's matchups.
Yeah, you're doing better off than I did. If you were looking for a recap episode, that's on me, folks. I kind of went on the IR for a few days here. Lost my voice completely, as you can hear. Probably I sound like a '90s grunge singer right now. So I got my hot tea with me and a boatload of cough drops here, so I don't go hacking through this. But we're here. We're not going to miss a single week of football, whether I can speak after this or not. That remains to be seen. So maybe talk to me, tomorrow. All right, Fresh. Let's go to the first game of the weekend. The first game we're going to, our producer Drew is going to be at. It is homecoming week in Chapel Hill. The Duke Blue Devils, 6-3, 3-2 in the conference, traveling to North Carolina, 7-2, 3-2 in the conference there. Kind of both these teams start off really, really strong, and then whoop, bottom's kind of falling off on them. Fresh, I like this matchup a lot. I think it's going to be closer than it looks like right now. At time record, UNC is a 14-point favorite. Over-under set at 50.5. What do you got on Blue Devils versus Tar Heels?
I think first off, this game is the what could have been bowl. Duke starts off taking out Clemson right off the bat. They gave Notre Dame all they could handle and then some. And, if Riley Leonard's healthy in that fourth quarter, they probably have a good chance of pulling that one off. So you kind of feel a little, left there. They obviously had that great game down at Florida State, and with Riley going out in that fourth quarter, kind of got away from them, and Florida State took over. But, Duke has always sort of been there. They've played aggressive, but they just haven't been able to finish in the big games. 1-3 versus ranked teams, and that only win actually obviously come in the opener versus Clemson. And then UNC on the other side, just looking, steamrolling people, and then here comes Virginia, lowly old Cavaliers, take them down in Chapel Hill, and then Georgia Tech takes them down the next week, and the wheels basically fell off. It wasn't like the defense was absolutely atrocious this year. They actually showed improvement. They just couldn't get out of their own way. Penalties, turnovers. It just all sort of rose its ugly head and kind of derailed them. And the way Louisville's playing right now, it would take a miracle for North Carolina to be back in the conversation for an ACC title game appearance. So this is kind of a play for pride. 10 wins are still on the table for both if they win out. So you still have something there to work with. But I think they're both going to sit back at the end of the year and kind of like, man, what could have been? I think that's the first thing. Obviously, Riley Leonard's not playing this ball game. So, Duke's offense going to have to find ways to continue to evolve and make things happen on their own and survive in advance. And for them to even have a chance and that offense to really get going, Mike Elko's defense got to show up. They're going to have to show up strong and play with a little passion. This is going to have to be a full team effort to take down a bitter, this is not basketball rivalry, Duke Carolina, but football, they've kind of heated it up recently over the past few years. And this is a chance for Elko. You have not beaten him yet as the head coach. Go in Chapel Hill and do it in homecoming. There's a lot of extra motivation. If you're ever the homecoming team that comes in, you should be a little pissed off because someone's actually saying this is a gimme win. And having a big rival be your homecoming team, if I want to motivate my football team, Mike Elko has a lot of right there on that bulletin board to get them going. On the other side, Carolina, Drake May, Heisman aspirations beginning of the year. Trez Walker coming in, the whole thing about him getting eligible. He plays, and he's obviously hurt now. Where's this team sort of functioning? How are they going to finish the rest of the season? They underestimate opponents in the middle of the stretch there. Can they actually regroup, beat Duke, move forward? They got NC State, they got Clemson next week, NC State the week after. You finish through, get yourself back on track. Maybe does Drake May want to stay? Your draft stock's kind of taking a hit. Maybe he goes, but this is a chance for you to leave a legacy and really play it out. Their offense is going to have to be very, very succinct. They're going to have to hit their receivers. Duke has played solid defense. They shut down Clemson. The only game that I saw them really truly get blown out was Louisville. They played Florida State real tough until the fourth quarter. They played that Notre Dame offense and they locked them down. Can that defense show up? And Drake May, you can't be worried. If you start turning the ball over and shortening the field for that Duke offense, who's still trying to find themselves, you might be in trouble. You've got to play a flawless football. You've got to use your abilities. You've got to throw the intermediate passing routes, set those up, and then run the football, draw the safeties into the box, and then take your deep shots. This is going to have to be your ball game. You got to shoulder the load and recover. Last week versus Campbell, it's an FCS opponent. I'm not even going to worry about that. You still, in my opinion, you've lost 2 in a row. That game, last week against Campbell does not count. You have got to come into this football game with a passion and a fire to recreate who you are and correct everything you made mistakes on. And you can't take Duke lightly. Duke has actually won 3 in a row when Daniel Jones was there in 16, 17, and 18. Yeah, you've won the 5 cents, the 4 cents, but Duke can find ways to get wins behind a decent play if you aren't taking them seriously. You have to be focused. You have to get in there. Right now, you're a big, large favorite. It's homecoming. I don't care about even covering the spread at this point. I just want you to go out there and focus on just winning the football game. Just baby steps right now for Carolina. Gene Chizik in your defense, tackle, wrap up, rally to the football. Do not let receivers get loose. In that Virginia game, receivers and running backs were getting loose in the secondary, and you guys just couldn't tackle at all. It was horrible. And letting Georgia Tech even have a chance. Again, no tackling, no pass rush. Where's this defense going to come from? Own it. I don't care about you covering the spread. Just win the football game and keep moving on. If you lose to Duke, it's 3 straight conference losses. People stop taking Carolina football seriously. I mean, you have a chance of sort of maybe saving some face and have a 10-win season. But if you lose to Duke on Saturday in Chapel Hill, people are going to stop taking you seriously. It's going to start being real bad. It's going to start a mediocre program you should really never back. So this is a big game for Carolina. If Elko and the Dukies can come in and get this dub, watch out because it's only going to springboard them forward with Riley Leonard, I assume, going to come back next year healthy. I think with the injury, he might decide to come back and play one more year. He kind of feels like that kind of guy. But on Saturday afternoon, I think the Tar Heels come in, they get it done. They win by 10. Duke keeps it close in an ugly ball game, but Carolina survives and moves on to play Clemson.
Like I said, Fresh, our producer Drew is going to be at this game. He's going to be there. It's going to be an interesting one for sure. But for me, it's going to come down to Marion Hampton. Fresh, it looks like, with everything that both these programs have gone through, there's only one thing that's truly consistent, and that's Marion Hampton. 4 straight games of 100 yards rushing. He's had a touchdown in every single one of those games. I think Drake May's really got to lean on him. He's already crossed the 1,000-yard mark for the season. He does a very good job catching the ball out of the backfield, and that's what is going to be able to put some pressure on the Blue Devils. Are you able to kind of keep Duke on its heels? Are you able to kind of, extend drives against Duke? What Duke did a really good job of is allowing people to move the ball in between the 20s and not finish off the drives. And that's what they did really well at the start of the season. Especially with the Duke offense sputtering as much as it is, that's what they're going to have to do in this game. They're going to have to, slow down the game. Yeah, okay, I'm going to make you sell for 3 instead of 6. That's where Amarion's going to come into play. For Blue Devils, I don't know what I can say about this offense anymore. Like, without Riley Leonard there, it kind of feels like a ship without a captain. Jordan Waters is a nice running back. He's had a fairly good year, although he's, since Leonard's gone out, like, has he really dominated very much? He looks like he's battling something himself as well. I just really don't know. I mean, for Duke, for me, it's got to be, if they're going to win this game, they got to do it with some defensive scores, maybe a special team pick 6, something along those lines. But I really have a hard time looking around and seeing a path to victory for the Blue Devils in this game. And that's sad to me because I really was excited about both of these teams entering into the season. I like UNC. I don't dislike Duke. I like Duke, especially for some other stuff. But man, I was really looking forward to this matchup, and now it's kind of like, it is what it is. So I don't know. Let me go. I'll go UNC by, it's 14. Yeah, give me UNC by 14. I'll take UNC in the points. They're at home. It's homecoming. Drake May is healthy. They're going to look to light up the scoreboard. Duke's going to have to get like at least 4 or 5 sacks in this game and force Drake May into like 3 or 4 turnovers if they want to have a chance in this one. But I, I I don't see a path for victory for the Blue Devils in this game.
Yeah, I think this is real tough. If Riley Lever's playing, this would be a very almost even matchup. I think we can get a lot of excitement, but they're kind of playing with an arm, left arm behind, a right arm behind their back at this point, and it's gonna be tough.
Right. Absolutely. All right, Fresh, let's go to our second game here. It is the Tennessee Volunteers traveling to Missouri. They're going all the way down to Columbia. At time of record, this shocked me. Tennessee's a 1-point favorite in this game. Missouri had a great showing against Georgia. I mean, after watching that game, I know we didn't get to do our recap. I was highly impressed. It's something both me and you talked about, Fresh. I thought Missouri played very, very well. Definitely a win that Georgia's able to hang their hat on. But Cody Schrader jumped off the screen for me. The fact of what he was able to do against that Georgia defense, I think he's going to have a field day against this Tennessee defense here. What say you?
Well, I mean, first off, can Missouri regroup as a team and take down the Vols? You put all that energy going to Athens to try to take down number 2 team in the country, the Georgia Bulldogs. You play, toe to toe with them. You lose by 9, and now you have to come back and take on Tennessee and get regrouped. This is a sign of actually, whether you won or lost, you play great football, but elite teams basically get your best effort week in and week out. So now you have to get yourself recharged and ready to go for Tennessee, who, in all essence and all intents and purposes, had a bye week when they played, UConn this past Saturday. So get yourself regrouped, re-energized. Know you take still something to play for. I mean, the winner of this game keeps themselves in the conversation somewhat for a significant, postseason. Mizzou, if they win, puts them in a good little spot to keep maybe even outside chance. You never know, New Year's Six Bowl, something like that. But there is something there for both these teams, considering they're 13 and 14 or 14 and 15 in the new rankings. They're both right there in the shouting distance. So there's a lot to play for in this football game. And Tennessee obviously has a chance of coming after it and getting Missouri and then line up play Georgia next week. So how does Missouri get up for this football game offensively and defensively and regroup after taking off a tough loss, playing a pretty good valiant effort? And then also from the Vols' perspective, are they looking ahead to the Dogs next week? There's a lot of revenge. A lot of Vols been on Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and whatever social media platform, for the past 360 plus days, just yapping and yapping and yapping that they're going to get revenge for last year's loss in Athens. Are the players, are the coaches, are the fans all looking ahead, just bypassing Missouri and looking ahead to Neyland next week and don't take Missouri seriously? If they do and they lose, then their chances of anything really true significant other than potentially upsetting Georgia are out the window. So are they focused and ready to play? That's what I'm kind of looking at, where these teams come out in the ball game. As we've seen the whole entire season, both these teams are very strong in the first half. And the Vols owned Bama. We all watched that game. They tore it up. They were up 13-0 in the first quarter, but they settled for field goals. And instead of being up 21-0 or 17, it was only 13-0 at the end of the first quarter. They gave up opportunities. It cost them in the end, and they ended up losing the ball game. But they came out with a lot of fire in the first half and got after Alabama, but they couldn't finish the football game. Missouri up 25-17 versus LSU at the half when they were taking on the Tigers. They were up 39-35 with 5:40 left. I mean, other than LSU was up 39-35. They just flipped the script. They couldn't keep that momentum going. They couldn't find ways to take the next step, to stem the tide, to win the football game. They're up 22-10. They threw a pick at their own 45, and LSU scored and kind of flipped the script on them. When will these teams actually finish the deal in a big game? And that's what I want to see from both of them, because they both have started great, but they faded. Where's their momentum coming in this football game? Are they ready to play? Are they fully focused for a 4-quarter battle? You mentioned Cody Schrader, and with him and Jalen Wright for Tennessee, the two running games are going to have to take over, because the quarterbacks, we know what we're going to get from Milton and from Cook, but the two running backs are going to have to set the tone for the respective teams to maintain the pass rush, to create the play action pass, to use the full field. And if they don't get that ground game going, their passing game becomes very one-dimensional and probably not going to be as successful. And they're going to need that running game for the whole 4 quarters. If they can keep that going, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. It maintains the game. It controls the clock. It allows the opponent's offense to sit on the bench, keep your defense rested for clutch closing time late in the fourth. Where will these games play out? It's great you jump out to early leads, but you can't finish the football game. Which one of these has the momentum and the ability to finish the football game? That's what I'm looking for. There's going to be a lot of points in this ball game. Tennessee's played a much improved defense this year compared to the past 2 years. Missouri's been up and down, but they play very physical at the front at the line of scrimmage. The defensive line can definitely get after the quarterback, but I'm kind of worried about that Missouri secondary and how they hold up. Can the Missouri pass rush set the tone for a full 4 quarters and protect the secondary? Can Tennessee's defensive backs tackle Luther Burden, Weiss, etc. for that Missouri offense? This is going to be a crazy game. I think whoever comes down to the turnovers in the fourth quarter is going to be the true deciding factor after the running game in this ball game. Because you look at last week, Brady Cook was playing well, threw 2 picks in the fourth quarter, took the air out of it. They ended up losing to Georgia. Milton had a couple turnovers in the game versus Alabama in between that kind of led to some flipping momentum and losing the ball game there. Which of these teams plays run the football? Which of these teams can play mistake-free football? And which team can actually play a full 4 quarters? Right now, it's more of a toss-up for me in my perspective and their motivation and how they're going to play those 3 key elements. From what I've seen, Tennessee still lost to Florida. They didn't blow out A&M. They've kind of batted around. They've played resilient football, but not sexy football. They haven't blown people out and dominated consistently in the league. Missouri has actually taken out K-State. They played neck to neck with LSU. I'm going to take the Missouri Tigers at home to win by 3. I just think that they have a little momentum right now, and I don't trust Joe Milton on the road. And Josh Heupel on the road is not very good. They've shown that they aren't the greatest. I'm just going to stick with that. Missouri's going to win. They're going to take it by 3. And Missouri's going to continue to have a great season and move forward.
Yeah, I think Missouri's got this one in the bag. I really do. The problem I have is who's Tennessee's best win right now on the season? It's against Kentucky. And even that game was on the road, granted, but you have a 6-point win over Kentucky. Virginia, Austin Peay, UTSA, South Carolina, A&M, and UConn are your other wins. Missouri's the more tested team. They're the better team. And I think that Brady Cook is going to really want to show off in this. I think that there's a lot at stake. I think being the number 2 team in the SEC East, and I think people will remember how hard Missouri played Georgia. And I think that they were respectable where you walk away going, we had a good loss versus them. Now, this is your 1 year that you can have a good loss. It's not something that you continue. But with a program like Missouri where people weren't expecting them to make this leap this year, having good losses, looking respectable, winning some big games along the way, that's how you build a program and a culture. Brady Cook, he's been the one that's impressed me. He really did a great job on leadership in certain aspects there, but he's got to make better decisions. Sometimes where he's forcing the ball into maybe too tight of windows, and instead of kind of taking the easy play, I'm looking out there. If Tennessee, not Virginia, but if Tennessee's going to win this one fresh, it's going to be with, like you said, Jalen Wright. He's got to take this game over. He's got to be the one that's really going to be kind of shouldering this whole load and being able to go at. He's had back-to-back 100-yard games. He scored in both of those games there. I need to see more out of him. I need to see more out of this defense a little bit more too. They have 30 sacks on the year. Are they able to get after Brady Cook? He's taken 16. Are they able to put Missouri behind the sticks? Are they able to really kind of wreak havoc in that backfield? Not let Schrader get moving, kind of hurry up Brady Cook's clock inside of his head? I don't know. I think that Missouri has impressed me. I think that they're going to have a lot of things come for them. They've had a great kind of opportunity to bounce back because both these teams have a catch-22 with him. Like, Missouri is a possibility of having a letdown game where Tennessee is maybe not taking this game so seriously and looking ahead. So which one of the coaching staffs are able to get them to take this game really seriously, say, hey, we still got a lot to play for in front of our schedule? I like Missouri in this game. I like Missouri big, like way more than that 1 point spread. Like there, I'd be hammering that. Um, I also think the over's coming in on this one. Over under set
Oh,
58.5.
no doubt. That actually might be in by the end of the third quarter. And like you mentioned about the pass rush, which I think is going to help Missouri. Going at last week's preview when we talked about Missouri, Georgia, Brady Cook has the number one release for all quarterbacks in the country, getting the ball out of his hand in 2.35 seconds on average. So it's a quick snap, quick release, getting the ball out of his hand, and that's going to help slow down some of that pass rush. So if you are Tennessee, probably not going to get any sacks, but if you're getting your hands up, knocking those balls down, and maybe being disruptive at the line of scrimmage, that's going to help you because you're not going to probably get to the quarterback very much because he's getting rid of that ball in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Fresh. Let's go to the Pac-12 After Dark. This game is at 10:30 at night on Fox. Late night for Fox. It's
Late
kind of
night for
shocking.
Fox.
But the USC Trojans, after that loss to Washington at home, travel up to Oregon, and Oregon has been shellacking people since losing to Washington. Spread for this game is 16.5 points. It's a lot of points up there in Eugene because USC still got the offense. They can't defend a single person, but they still got the offense. What do you think?
Well, first off, Lincoln Riley, great job. Way to finally fire Alex Grinch. Now, we don't want to see people get fired very often, but that guy has been holding you down and holding you back for a long time. He ruined you, kind of held you back at Oklahoma, definitely held you back here at USC. You finally made the right decision and told him to, take an exit stage left and leave out there in Hollywood. Will that inspire the defense to grow up here? This will give them a little fire, maybe play a little extra, pace. Who knows? Because I think the players are still players, and the coaches outside of him are still going to be there. But changing that direction, showing for a future, is something you had to do. And at some point, that defense might actually become somewhat of a reliable source for the USC Trojans. But right now, currently, it isn't, and it won't be on Saturday, and it probably won't be the rest of the season. Utah is the only team since September 30th to score less than 35 on Tennessee. On USC, excuse me. Utah is the only team since September 30th to score less than 35 points on USC. And Utah scored 30, 34? I mean, this is just terrible defense from USC. They are horrible. Can't tackle. They can't stop anybody in coverage. They can't get to the quarterback. They might get some sacks in garbage time, but they're not getting the sacks when they actually matter in big games. You bring in all the transfers you want. Bring in Barry Alexander last year. There's been no difference makers. They have no plan on defense, and they can't execute. And as great as Caleb Williams is, and I really feel bad for him in his Heisman campaigns. Now he's not going to repeat. And seeing his dream sort of fade. You have to have a balanced football team in college football these days, folks. You cannot just be all one. You can't just be all defense and have no offense. Look at Iowa. And you can't be all offense and no defense. Look at USC. You have to find somewhat of a comparable approach to both sides of the ball because there's too much talent, too many great coaches out there across the country. They're going to find ways to get by. You've got to have better players on both sides of the ball and better schemes and people to address attention to detail and execute on game day. USC, they finally learned their lesson. They were able to skate through a pretty easy schedule last year, and this year it's caught up with them. And now you're finally getting your first meeting against Dan Lanning. And the reason why Dan Lanning was brought to Oregon was to face Lincoln Riley and USC. And with a lot on the line right now, I got a feeling it's going to be a pretty rude welcome to Autzen Stadium for the Trojans. Why I say that is that right now, Oregon has only beaten one team that has a winning record as of right now. They might have been 1-0 back in the day or 2 or whatever, but as of this point right now, the only team that they've beaten that had a winning record as we currently stand right now through week 10 is Utah. So they need to add some beef to their resume, and they have to go out and beat a team with a winning record, and that's USC. And if they don't, then Oregon's a fraud. So you have to come out here. They're going to put their foot down. They know they have to get some style points. And honestly, with not many people watching, it's going to be a 10:30 kick on Fox. Most people will probably be in bed by halftime. So you're going to come out rocket fired, get yourself some points, light up the scoreboard so that it's 35 or 38 to nothing by halftime. People go to bed. They're like, man, Oregon looked really great. And then they wake up and they pick up their phone the next morning and see, Oregon beat USC 65-3 or 65-10 or whatever it might be. And you see that when you pull up your box score in the morning on Sunday morning, you're going to realize, man, they dominated them. That's the shock factor you have to have if you're Oregon to make yourself really put yourself in a viable spot to make that jump potentially in top four if someone slips up here in the next couple of games. But you have to beat USC. You've got to set the tone, and you've got to do it with some shock and awe to really grab that attention and put it down. If you don't dominate USC and destroy that defense, they're going to have questions about you and if you've actually truly beaten anybody because you obviously lost to Washington. And if you're truly a worthy team, or you're just playing a mediocre schedule. So there's a lot at stake right now. Now the Pac-12 has been absolutely fantastic. There's tons of competition. Oregon still has, Oregon State down the road. They potentially have a Pac-12 title game. But being USC is a name recognition win for anyone across the country who might not truly pay attention to Pac-12. And if you come out there and you blow them out and you do it with a big score, it's going to grab people's attention and really get them focused. As we learned from the committee tonight, as they release their rankings, in some cases, it's like they're not even watching the games. They're just looking at the box score. So this will actually help your case if you go out there and light up the Trojans. Caleb, you've been shouldering it all by yourself. I truly, I will give you utmost respect. You and that USC offense have done all you can. Keep trying to chug it through. You're going to get a big challenge from Oregon's defense. Outson's going to be allowed. It's going to be raucous. You're going to have to be able to stem the tide. You've played in big games. You're going to have to manage your emotions and manage the down and distance, and do not turn the ball over. Do not give the Ducks a chance. Look what happened. Granted, it was Colorado, but look what happened when Colorado went there in September. They walked in, they talked a bunch of trash, and they got the trash knocked out of them. They got jumped. They had no idea what was about to hit them. They did not respect Outson Stadium, and that was in basically a noon kickoff. This is going to be a 7:30 local time, 10:30 Eastern. They're going to be partying all day long, and they're going to be ready for a big one. If you have to come out there and you have any chance at pulling off an upset, you're going to have to be dynamic. You might actually have to do it by yourself. So go out there, be a leader, inspire your team, and try to just give it all you got. It could be a statement win because right now you're the underdog. And I think, honestly, for the first time in your career at USC, you are the underdog. You have a chance of going out there and pulling off an upset when, as the past couple weeks, nobody truly gives you a chance. That means you have to play within the system. You've got to be calm and collected. Your receivers got to be on the same page. Your offensive line's got to play, and your defense has got to give you at least an ounce of effort. Maybe even just one turnover to knock Bo Nix off his game for a little bit to keep you involved. But you have to play as a full unit, and you can't play split. There's been times you watch in sports where, and especially in football, maybe the offense is doing all the work and the defense, for lack of a better term, it sucks, or vice versa. And the other side of the ball, they start getting pissed at their comparable group. Like, you guys never score for us. What's going on? Why do I have to keep playing? And vice versa. If that right there is complete separation of a football team, and that's where it all falls apart, and that's where teams quit by the second quarter if things start falling apart. If you can rally together and keep yourself involved, you at least can fight through 4 quarters and show you're a true football team and a true program. That means you're a leader. It means the team is ready to play because you're all going to have to be together. You're in a hostile environment there up in Oregon. You're going to have to come together and play it hard and leave it all on the field to beat this Oregon team. The other side, Bo Nix, Franklin, the whole squad, Dan and Lanning, this is your statement game right here. If you want to get that revenge game versus Washington, you've got to come out here and take down USC, and you've got to do it in amazing fashion. Right now, you're in the top 6. You're in the conversation. Things are looking great. But to really make that next impression, you've got to go out here and dominate. Washington, they've been able to survive ever since they beat you. They haven't looked amazing, but they've been able to handle stuff and get it done. Can you go out there and maybe put up a big number and flip the narrative? Maybe look, hey, you know what? We were actually the better team in that game. We just didn't come out of it. We want that rematch, and we actually deserve a 4 spot. You have to get that chance done, and that starts with USC. Go out there and execute. Dan Lanning, he's coached under Nick Saban. He's coached under Kirby Smart. He knows what it takes to win, but now we need to start him putting together the wins against ranked teams and against winning opponents in big time games. That's where you have to start developing that program and taking that next step. Can Dan Lanning and that Oregon Ducks team do that? They did it versus Utah. They look great. I want to see, can they do it versus USC, and so on and so forth. The games only get bigger from here. You have a lot at stake. Execute. Run the football. Bo Nix, go out there and be special. You're still in the Heisman consideration. This could be your Heisman moment, so get it done. In the end, I think the over is hidden, and I think the Ducks are going to go out there and they're going to actually dominate USC. So much for my rah-rah speech. It's not going to be enough for the Trojans. The Ducks will win by 30. Ducks will dominate.
So, Fresh, both these teams to me have a lot to play for. Oregon needs to continue to build their case. Like you said, they only got one win over a team with a winning record so far this season. And Bo Nix is desperately trying to keep his name in the Heisman conversation. He needs a big game, especially against a team like USC, because he's only going to have a handful of more opportunities to kind of get to that point the rest of the season. You know, you take a look at the rest of their schedule, no one's going to really tune into that Arizona State game. And then you got the Civil War. So this is the game where Bo Nix can make his case of whether or not he gets an invite to New York or not. On the reverse, excuse me, on the reverse for USC, USC actually can still make the Pac-12 title game, as crazy as this sounds. Remember, the Pac-12 takes the top two teams. If USC goes into Eugene and beats Oregon, they will be in a four-way tie, depending on what another game works out with. But let's say a four-way tie with Oregon, Oregon State, Arizona, and Utah. They have a head-to-head win against Arizona and against Oregon. They don't play Oregon State this year, but if Oregon were to lose to Oregon State, they would then not have the better conference record. So you would anticipate that Oregon is going to beat Oregon State. Then on top of that, Utah's playing Washington this week in Washington. So you kind of think, okay, there might be another loss for Utah. USC only has one more game. Like, people forget that because USC played in week 0, that they have an opportunity because they only got to play UCLA in 2 weeks from now. And then they're off until the Pac-12 title game. Lincoln Riley, there's your speech. There's your thing to get your defense motivated. Like, listen, we played like junk all year long. People are making fun of us. People are gashing us all up and down the sidelines there. You know, we've lost to our first rival, Notre Dame. When it's come to a big game, we haven't been able to get done. You know what will make a lot of your fan base forget those things? Going into Oregon and winning that football game. If you go into Oregon and beat Bo Nix and this whole offensive, this Bucky Irvine, Troy Clifford Franklin, my favorite wide receiver, all of these guys, it's going to make a huge statement. Oregon, you're playing for your college football playoff committee life. Like, it would be very easy to be like, oh, you know, USC has lost all this stuff, and, you know, they have 3 losses on the year. Man, that Trojan team, that's getting to be a very dangerous team right now because they don't have a whole lot to play for. And if you start saying, like, hey, you know, we could be spoilers now, yeah, that conference title game's a heck of a lot of things to play for. And remember, the Trojans only got to be good one time, so, you know, you got that going for you. So, I don't know, Fresh. I really don't. Listen, everything says Oregon should win this game. Everything, every metric, everything. I just think that this is going to get close. I think it's going to be closer than the point spread. I think it's going to be closer than what a lot of people think it's going to be. But in the end, I just don't think USC's got the defense to stop them. I think Lincoln Riley is going to take a very long look in the mirror after this season. I think that seat's going to get really hot, but I still think he's going to be okay there in Hollywood. But give me the Ducks, but I'm actually would be willing to take USC in the points in this game. High scoring game, though.
Oh, no
60 and
doubt.
a half's a lot.
I think that over is going to be destroyed.
Oh, yeah. Over's going to come in big time. Over under set at 73 and a half. All right, Fresh. As I'm sipping on my tea here and trying to make it through this here. Let us roll to our next game. We're staying out west in the Pac-12. Utah is traveling to Seattle, Washington big time game for the Utes. They've kind of found a quarterback in Mr. Barnes there, but he's going up against, our Heisman pick right now in Michael Penix Jr. At time of record, this game is a 9.5 point favorite for Washington, and over under is set at 53.5 right now. What do you got for Washington, Utah, buddy?
I think first off, can Kyle Whittingham's Utes and his defense pull off another shocking miracle? Everyone comes in, we always doubt them, especially last year, the two games, USC, and all the times they play them, and they don't have a chance. And somehow they just rally, and the defense shows up, they get gritty, and they just figure it out. They get guys, players are banged up, and second and third stringers just show up, and they run the offense or run the defense, and they get it done. But at some point, when do those injuries, when does that lack of experience catch up with you? How much more does that Utah team have left in the tank to keep playing at a high level? Because right now it's a gauntlet out there in the Pac-12, and they're getting everybody's best shot. They're two-time defending Pac-12 champions, then a back-to-back Rose Bowls, but you're starting to see some of that wear and tear when they beat USC, but going to Oregon and getting thumped. It's how much juice these guys have left. You're seeing Barnes. He's been slowly getting better as the years gone on, as taking over for Rising. And knowing that Cam is probably coming back next year as getting another red shirt, you have your last couple of games to empty the tank yourself and really show. Because I got a feeling if you do okay and Rice is coming back, do you want to go in the transfer portal or do you want to be the backup and continue to develop? But you have a chance right here to showcase yourself and to come out a legend at Utah. Like if you go in here and you beat Washington, an undefeated team, on the road in a very hostile environment up there in Seattle, that you won't buy a drink, for yourself at all, the entire state of Utah, and probably at least in, Salt Lake City. You have a chance, but you have to trust Kyle Whittingham, trust the coaching staff, but everyone's going to play also assignment football. Do what you do. Whittingham is very similar to Bill Belichick. During Bill Belichick's great run, right now this season the Patriots stink, but plugging and playing guys, playing within a system, understanding the responsibilities, and all 11 working as one. And that's how Utah does it. They communicate, they execute, they're physical, they do not get beat at the line of scrimmage. Washington's a little different. Their defense has not been as dominant or as stout as we all thought it was going to be coming into the year. They've definitely left us wanting more from that side of the football. And then offensively, they are juggernaut. They have, depth at receivers ridiculous. We saw what Dylan Johnson did, ran all over USC, and then Michael Penix Jr. is chucking the ball left and right all over the West Coast. If I'm Kyle Whittingham, I'm going to treat this Washington offense like USC's team last year. You're going to see a great quarterback in the pocket who isn't exactly the most mobile, but can scoot right now if he has to. Running game is going to be a complementary aspect, but the passing game is 4 to 5 threats out there at all times. And can you take advantage of that offensive line and get your pass rush to take them out? That's where you're going to have to win it. Put a nice little bubble back there. Maybe run 6 defensive backs out there. Keep a dime look. Get guys all over the field and keep everything in front of you and let the pass rush get home. Keep everything in front of you so they don't get the deep balls. They don't get the quick strikes and force him into containment. If you let them start hitting quick hitters or quick passes or bubble screens and you're not tackling, you're going to be in trouble. You've got to keep your eyes on, in your zone, in your responsibility. Don't get caught looking in the backfield. If you get caught, you're going to see a guy in, purple scooting right by you for a touchdown. If they can play smart, organized, disciplined football, they can make this a football game and slow it down and slug it out. This is going to be the best defense that Washington's going to see all season. Can they overcome? Because if they get in the playoff, they're going to be playing good defenses. And that's the one thing. Can this team actually face a good defense and shut them down? And can their defense show up in a game where they should be dominant and dominate? If Utah's offense isn't dominating, if Washington struggles with them, that really has me worried about their playoff potential. If you are struggling versus a mediocre offense and your defense is not getting off the field, and can your offense actually score against a legit defense? Then the committee will start seeing these parallels and really starting evaluating that if they are watching the games. I think that's what we're going to come in and see here in this point. I'm really, really excited about this ball game. Can Utah get one more, feather in their cap in the legacy? Is Washington, is the tank kind of getting dry here? Are they getting a little exhausted as the season's gone on? We'll sort of figure this one out. At the end, though, I don't trust Utah's offense to make the ball game. In their 2 losses this season, they're averaging 6.5 points a game, but in their wins, they're averaging 30. So if they're losing, it means the offense is getting absolutely shut down, and there's no hope. And if they're winning, they're blowing people out, or at least getting a shootout like they did versus USC. I just don't think that they have enough firepower to keep up with Washington in this case. And I think the Huskies survive in advance one more week and keep the dream season going up there in Seattle. But Utah will give a fight. It's right now Huskies by 9. I think the Huskies win by. I think 9 is too small, but I think the Huskies win by a touchdown. So actually, give me Utah and the points. Huskies win. It's gonna be a gritty ball game in Seattle. It's something worth tuning in, but it's gonna give me more doubts about Washington at the end of the game than positive thoughts when it comes to their playoff positioning.
See, I'm the opposite on that, Fresh. I think I have that much respect for the Utah defense. I feel like if Washington can beat a defense to the ability of Utah, that it starts for us to really start going. The Pac-12 is the toughest conference in the nation right now. They're beating everybody up. It's time to give a little more respect to Washington. I see this very similar to the Oregon State game. I think it's close. I think it's a little more low scoring than a lot of people expected. Oregon State versus Utah earlier this season, that was 21-7 in a final game. You said it last week, is Dylan Johnson. He was a key factor for you against USC. He ran all up and down the Trojans. He had a great game from him. I think that you're starting to see a coming of age party for him. He had 256 yards and 4 touchdowns. Again, that's up against the USC defense. This defense is a whole heck of a lot better. But that kid's got the confidence going on right now. And he's a name that you have to account for if you're the Utah defense. I think Utah is going to have to make like a choice. Am I going to bring a safety up in the box because this kid's getting going and we want to make sure that he's not the one to beat us. We want to put the ball in Penix's hands. Or do they, hey, we're going to put our cornerbacks on the island against these Washington receivers and say, good luck to you. I don't know which, that's why Kyle Whittingham gets paid the money he gets paid. It's the reason he's been there as long as he has. Those are the type of decisions that I know that whatever decision I would make would be the wrong one, because I think that Utah's defense is going to keep this game close. I would take Utah on the points as well. I just don't think, as nice as Bryson Barnes has been so far, he's still thrown 5 interceptions. He's still completing less than 60% of his passes. He needs to show me a little bit more. I don't have a player that I could sit there and say, hey, Washington, like, you got to be worried about this guy because he's going to take over this game. It could happen. It could. But I just see, like, this is a different team when Utah goes out on the road. Like, it's a different team. Yes, their defense travels and plays very well, but their offense doesn't. You take a look at what, outside of the USC game, but in the 2 other times they've gone on the road, Oregon State, they scored 7 points, and Baylor, they won 20-13. So realistically, in my mind, what are you willing to bet that Washington won't put up at least 21 to 24 points? I'm not. I think Washington's offense is good enough to easily get to that number. Are they going to get to 35, 40? No. But I think they're enough to make it very, very difficult for Utah to win this football game.
I mean, it's going to be a battle. I just really want to see where Washington's truly settle at, and if they can actually show promise. Because I think there's definitely some deficiencies in the roster right now from Utah, unless they play it within that scheme. But if the Huskies actually can withstand a tough opponent, it's really going to show me if they are playoff worthy. Because if they have to play an Ohio State, a Michigan, a Georgia, an Alabama, Texas, a Florida State in the playoff, where are they going to stand? Are they going to stand a chance? Because last year we saw TCU having a great offense all year long, and when they pulled off a miracle versus Michigan, and they got thumped when it really mattered.
Right. Well, again, we also knew that we felt whoever's coming out of that game was going to get thumped. But all right, Fresh, let's go to the Southeastern Conference this weekend. This game is a 7 p.m. kickoff. It's a night game in Athens. The Ole Miss Running Rebels. Are they still Running Rebels?
They're just the Rebels.
Eh, why can't they
But
still be
they
running?
run the ball a lot, so you can call them the running
Yeah,
Rebels.
yeah, come on. They're still running up and down the field. They're going to Athens to face Georgia Bulldogs here. Again, Georgia coming off a marquee statement win of their season. We were talking about this all year long. Who has Georgia played? They really haven't played anybody, but we all pointed to this stretch of games. And we said by the end of the season, this is going to be the time where we really know what Georgia is. Huge win over Missouri, really proving it, especially without, having Brock Bowers in that game. Big win there. Ole Miss, with all the craziness that went on against Texas A&M, and if you're playing Texas A&M, guys, make sure you're wearing the right protective gear from
Oh yeah.
those low blow
Oh
points.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So right now, at time of record, this game is which kind of shocked me. UGA a 10.5 point favorite, over under set at 58.5. Fresh, big game for Georgia.
Well, Ole Miss is the only SEC team that Kirby has not beaten. So there is something hanging in the balance right there for him. I think he probably can take that one a little personal. Um, it's a mark. So that's a little underlying theme there for the whole entire game as we go into it. I think Ole Miss is we've had high hopes for them all year long. Kind of looked at them like, are they ready to take that next step? Who out of the West? They have LSU there, who they beat. Still couldn't beat Alabama. And that was before Alabama really hit their surge. I probably kind of jump started them on that point. But where's this Lane Kiffin Ole Miss program going to finally take off and hit that national consistent national scale? They went to the Sugar Bowl a couple of years ago, had a little step back last year, and now they're right back here on the precipice at number 9 in the country. Where do they how can they put it all together? Can they get the defense to actually play at a higher level to help balance the offense? And then when does Lane Kiffin, when do the players actually start playing in his offense? It's not seen as some sort of gimmick offense or whatever, because the dude can coach ball. He did it at FIU, excuse me. He's done it at Alabama. He's done it through the NFL. He gets fired, here and there for being a little outlandish, maybe too young, but he's definitely matured by the time he got to Ole Miss. When he went to Alabama, he's still kind of that fringe guy, didn't know what was going on, learned from Saban, did it at FAU, and now here at Ole Miss, he's shown maturity. He shows how to build a program, and that's something dangerous if a guy can figure it out and get the players to play for him. He still has that energy where the dudes look at him like, I want to play for Lane Kiffin, and I want to be able to take it to the next level. And that right there inspires confidence in a football team. And it brings me to the way this team is sort of played. We came into the year looking at the quarterback position. Is it Spencer Sanders? Is it Howard? Is Jackson Dart going to retain the title as a starting quarterback? And even as the season sort of started, we didn't know if Jackson Dart was the guy. But he has performed really well. Kayshawn Judkins had a slow start, but he's starting to catch it on now. And then obviously Lane. The three of them get all the fame. But this offense truly, in my opinion, is built around the law firm of Harris, Watkins, and Wade. Those three receivers make make the entire offense flow, whether it's run blocking, whether it's deception, and allowing the defense to have to respect them and not as much respect toward the running game, and then vice versa. Or during the play action game, their explosiveness, their ability to get down the field, to get open, and helping Dart make those easy throws. They work so well together in the entire package of that offense. The way that Lane has built it, it becomes extremely dangerous. The way that he can run the play action game on some sort of reads or options or just whatever stretch kind of play action he wants to run through, those receivers get open in space. They wash out the defensive backs and they're wide open. And that's what they do when they have a great running game. And if they all can blend together against Georgia's defense, they are going to be very successful on Saturday night. One thing we saw versus Missouri, and we've seen kind of all year, is that Georgia's defense is very susceptible to the stretch run, to the perimeter running game. And that's what Ole Miss does a great job at, whether it's jet sweeps or whether it's just the stretch handoffs, getting wide on the edges. So can Georgia set the edge? Can their corners get up and tackle? And also with Dumas Johnson not playing this ball game, C.J. Allen taking over more so at middle linebacker, is he going to be able to read and make the right decision and get to the point of attack and make the tackle? These are all big points right now coming into this football game. How do they use a young linebacker probably making his first career start, and how they're going to fill in for losing a veteran in Dumas Johnson at linebacker? But they also, the defensive backs in the run game, we're going to have to now play up a little bit more to support and play on the edge. How do you take advantage of that? Which of the young corners? Lassiter's been doing great right there. We saw Julian Humphrey get in for Georgia last week. But who keeps their eyes in the backfield and forgets about those Ole Miss receivers and they get behind them? Can Tyke Smith, Bullard, and Malachi Starks be veteran enough to keep everyone in front of them and execute, the way it should be? This is where the chess match comes in. Kirby and Lane were both on the same staff for a couple of years at Alabama. They've coached against each other on the practice field. They've run against stuff again. They know each other pretty well. How do those situations come into play here? Who take advantage of what tell going forward? Pete Golding's defense obviously has grown. They are not fantastic, but they play better on the road. How do they match up with a top 10 offense in with Mike Bobo and Carson Beck and all that group has to provide? Bauer's probably still not playing in this football game, probably his best chance to come back versus Tennessee. But how does this offense continue to evolve and take advantage of maybe some miscommunication in that Ole Miss secondary? The Ole Miss pass rush is very, very good, and they can get home on the quarterback. So you have to get rid of the ball early, and you have to run the football to slow that pass rush down. Where does that come into play? Can Ole Miss also play penalty-free football? They're 114th in the nation, averaging 7.3 penalties a game for 62 yards. And on the road, they're averaging 8 penalties for about 62 yards as well. So can they manage their emotions? Does the crowd noise get to them? This is the last home game for the Dogs. Does the Dog Nation empty the tank with energy and noise and make it an extremely hostile environment for this Ole Miss offense and Jackson Dart? Do we get false starts? Do you get miscommunications? Are guys not getting the right read? How does that come into play? You look back at last year when Tennessee came in, the crowd was raucous. They had, 6, 7 false starts, all in key critical situations. How does the crowd impact it, and how does Ole Miss avoid the penalties? If they can play disciplined football and maintain down and distance, they're okay. If they get out of out of the 1st and 10, they get 1st and 15, 1st and 20, that running game becomes less and less effective, and passing game becomes the reliance, and that pass rush for Georgia and that secondary come into play. There are big situations right now. Is Ole Miss, I think they're built for it. They've been through the game versus the Tigers. They went to Alabama. Those kids understand the big game environments. This is now, if you win, you still might have some somewhat outside chance of getting to Atlanta, depending on what Alabama does. If they lose to Auburn or Kentucky, but you have a chance for a New Year's Six bowl, just like Missouri does. You have a chance to continue to supplant yourself as a big program on the rise. And going in and beating number 2 team in the country would put you in a great spot with recruits, with the landscape of the way the league is changing. Can you go into Athens and get it done? This is an offense that can do it, but can the defense for Ole Miss show up and balance them out? That's what I'm really trying to pay attention to. Offensively for the Dogs, Carson Beck, you had some throws you made. The receivers made some great plays. You missed some. The offensive line did not play a very good game versus Missouri. How do they redeem themselves and continue to improve? You're going to need probably about 30 points to beat Ole Miss. If your defense can hold them to 27, you can score 30, you're okay. But you're going to have to put up points again this week against Ole Miss and match, and it could be a shootout. This is probably the best offense you're going to face. Can you be able to match them blow for blow if it comes down to that on Saturday night? In the end, I think the Dogs, with the home crowd, find a way to dig deep. It's going to be a physical game. Their offensive line is going to play a little better, but they're going to have to grow up a little bit to get that running game and keep Ole Miss on the sideline. Dogs win by 9. They don't cover, but they survive in advance to go up to Neyland and take on the Vols next week. This will be another classic battle, late night under the lights there between the hedges and Athens.
Fresh. It's been interesting because I was very impressed with Georgia's effort against Missouri, and I thought they played a really well-rounded game. I thought the defense really came to play, was opportunistic, and for Ole Miss to win this game, it's basically going to be all the things you said about. They have 66 penalties on the year. Georgia, in comparison, has 39, and that was my big thing. Like, for Ole Miss to win this football game, you need to play completely mistake-free football. You cannot let a drive get stalled out because of a stupid penalty or a stupid holding call or something that puts you from, 2nd and 3 to 1st and 20. It can't be that. This has also got to be a game where if I'm Ole Miss, I need Quashon Judkins to ball out. I need him to look at what what Schrader did with Missouri and just go, okay, I can do that, and I'm a better running back than he is. I'm a beast. And he turns on that beast mode, that extra special thing that made him, he was a freshman last year going into this year, and we had him as an All-American. He has that secondary gear. I would not be shocked to see him just have a 150 type of day. And we said that last week, and the comments blew up and said, you guys haven't watched a ton of Georgia football. No one's been able to run the ball in Georgia. And guess what? Missouri ran the ball in Georgia. They actually had a better day on the ground than Georgia did. And I look at this, and I look at Georgia, and I say, Deshaun Edwards, I need you to pick it up just a touch, like 77 yards on 16 carries. I need a little bit more out of you. I need a little bit more out of this running game here. Because, like you said, Fresh, I feel like until Brock Bowers gets back, I feel like Georgia is kind of like playing with fire. And like you're good enough and you're talented enough that you can play with fire, but is there one of the days where you overreach yourself and you get burned? Is there a day where you decide like, okay, I've done this so many times and I'm on autopilot and stuff like that. I know you said that Kirby has never beaten Ole Miss. They have played a grand total of one time since Kirby has been there at Georgia. So, it's not, and that wasn't with Lane Kiffin as the head coach of Ole Miss at the time either. So I'm going to kind of throw that piece out here. I got a weird feeling about this game. I don't know why this game is sitting weird in my stomach. Everything that I know about college football, everything like the eye test and everything I've watched on the year, I picked Georgia. Everything is telling me to pick Georgia on this. And man, for some reason, I just get this sinking suspicion that this is going to be something special for Lane Kiffin. He may not have beaten Alabama this year. And the fact is that he can kind of go back and say, like, hey, Alabama, like, we trade wins with them. Like, we'll beat them one year, they'll beat us this year. But I think Lane Kiffin is, like, desperate to be the number 2 team in the West and being able to really take a shot against Alabama. This could be the game. This could be the game here. I'm having a hard time. I'm having a really, really hard time. I got to pick Georgia because I can't pick against Georgia at Athens at night. But I would take Ole Miss in the points in this game. It's one of those, and maybe my gut's wrong. It could be totally wrong. But I just have this weird feeling about this game. I don't have any like profound like insight. I don't have any like hidden stat that's jumping off the page at me. I don't have like, oh yeah, if they do this and look, this is a way they've exploited other teams. It's just one of those games that just feels weird to you. And I don't know why, and I could be dead wrong, and I probably will be dead wrong on this. So it is what it is. But I'll still say Georgia to win. But I'll take Ole Miss in the points in it.
And just a disclaimer, folks, because some of y'all don't understand what we're talking about or don't listen to the full comments. To beat Georgia, teams must run the football. That is not the statement that they will run the football, but that's what you have to do to beat good teams. For Ole Miss to win, they have to run the ball. Not that they will run the ball for 100 or 200 and 300, 400 yards. They have to run the ball. There's a big difference in can and will and must. Schrader ran for 100 last week. It was a rare occurrence. It doesn't happen very often, but it shows that to be competitive and play close football games with a very, very good football team, you have to be able to run the football. And if you're going to be successful, running back's probably going to have 100 plus yards. If not, it means you're trying to chase points late. That's where the difference comes into the football game, and having to, can you run it and will you run it? And that's a big difference when it comes to that in the end.
Yeah, I mean, and think about this. Fresh, look, what is it? Late in the third quarter, that Mizzou touchdown, and it's 21-24 Georgia. Exactly what we said is that we thought last weekend that Mizzou would be able to keep it close up until the fourth quarter, and it was going to be something that Georgia pulls away at the end. I get the kind of same feeling. I think this is going to come down to the wire, though. I think this is going to be, and maybe that's my statement. If you tell me Ole Miss has the ball last and has a shot at it, like, that's when I feel. I think that maybe is what the feeling I'm getting at, but I still think Georgia, until someone knocks off Georgia, I'm not going to pick against them. So,
well, we will see on Saturday night. At some point, you hate to say it, but at some point, dogs are going to lose, but you just hope it's not this week.
yeah. No team is undefeated forever. So, even the best ones go down once or twice. All right, Fresh, let's go to the game of the week. This is might not be the best game on the field. Well, it's a pretty darn good game, but it's probably going to be the most interesting game for all the outside hubbubaloo. And yes, I've been waiting to use the word hubbubaloo for a while there. So if you have that on your bingo card, mark that one off. The Michigan Wolverines, with all the craziness, all the things going around them, they're traveling to Happy Valley. This is a noon kickoff. Michigan is a 4.5-point road favorite. Over under is set at 45.5. Fresh. I got a very strong take on this one, but I'll let you go first here.
This is the something has to give game between the Scandalreens and the Wolverines and the Nittany Lions. They're very, very evenly matched on paper. They both run focused, power formation, one or two tight ends, bunch them up, run the ball, play action, mid to level passing game out of it to keep it down distance, and they both play great defense. This is it's like a mirror image of both these schools coming at it. And there's a lot of other things that make this more of a very common mirror image when it comes down to the stats and the metrics, whatever. These squads have owned the third quarter, so something has to give here. They have combined to outscore their opponents 211-0 in the third quarter. So either we're going to get a nothing third quarter, or both teams are scoring on each other like crazy. Now keep that in mind, that both these teams come out of the locker room, they make adjustments, and they put their foot down and put football games away. And that's what you have to do as a good football team in the third quarter. You come in, you make adjustments, and you come out with a fire to take the other team's will. And both these teams have been doing a pretty good job at it so far this season. Michigan leads the nation with 12 straight games of scoring 30 points or more. That's number one. That leads the country. Penn State has allowed 24 or less points in 14 straight games and has only allowed 40 or more points 2 times in their last 39, those being their losses to Michigan and Ohio State last year. It means they are going to shut you down. They're going to keep the game very low scoring, and they're going to slug it out with you the entire time. And you are not going to be in a shootout with them. And if you are scoring above 24, you're probably going to beat Penn State. They don't have the firepower to really keep up with them. So their goal is to run the clock, play defense, keep it mediocre, and lock you down defensively and force those 3 outs, force the turnover, especially in the red zone, lock it down. They don't give up many points very often, so expect this to be a very tight battle. Michigan has allowed 13 or less points in 9 straight games and less than 30 points in 34 of their last 37 games. The only times that they have allowed 30 or more points have been losses to Michigan State, TCU, and Georgia. So if you can get to 30 points on them, good chance you're beating Michigan. The last 6 times Michigan has gone to Happy Valley, they won that in 2021, 21-17, a very sloppy ball game. They came back late and scored a touchdown. They lost in 2019, lost in 2017. They won 28-16 in 2015, and they lost in the 2 years before that in 2013 and 2010. They do not have much success in Happy Valley. On the flip side, they're 4-1 up in Ann Arbor against Penn State. They own them up there. They struggle. They just do not have the same feel when they come to Happy Valley and play Penn State in that environment. And it's going to be rocking. How does J.J. McCarthy handle it? Last year, his only true big road game that he played last year is at Ohio State. He looked okay. He played pretty well. Obviously, we know, and the end result was there. How does he transition that and get a big road win here in Happy Valley against Penn State? Can he keep his motions? Can the offense keep building? Can they run the ball with Corum and Edwards? Does he make the right throws and not get caught up in the emotions of what's going on outside the football field right now and try to do too much? That's the one thing that kind of worries me if I'm a Michigan fan. Your team is great, but all the stuff on the outside right now, the whole scandal, whatever's going on, are the players going to try to do too much to prove that it's not about having the extra stuff? Are they going to try to take an extra throw? Are they going to try to do something outlandish to say, it's always been us, we don't need the signs or the knowing what everything else is? And that's where you start getting a little selfish, in my opinion. And that's where bad things could start to happen. They got cocky versus TCU. They overlooked them. Before they knew it, they got jumped on, and they couldn't catch up. It kind of feels to me here in that Penn State game, do they kind of overlook Penn State? They're more worried about the outside noise and don't take this game seriously and think they just have it in the bag, and they just try to do too much, and they lose. They have to play within themselves, play within the offense, play within the defense, be who you are. You've obviously can run the football very effectively. You can throw the ball when you need to. You don't get shootouts very often, so you don't have to worry about that fast-paced offense. You do it your own way. You play defense, and you chug it through, and you methodically dominate the opponent. Penn State is very, very similar in their regard from offense and defense. But when do we stop actually believing in Penn State? This is the game right here. This is the make it or break it game, in my opinion, if you're James Franklin. You've had opportunities to show up and get close, but you've never been able to actually break through. And with the Big Ten going in next year with USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington joining, I'm just going to say right now, the Big Ten and SEC are probably each going to get 4 teams in the playoff next year in the 12-team playoff. That's 8 of the 12. Are you one of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten? Or are you just going to be not taken seriously? Right now, you are living on the coattails of being a preseason top 10 team and sort of hanging in there and having your only loss beat Ohio State when you played pretty competitive. And, on the scoreboard, it's 20-12. You were kind of down early, but you fought back. But can you actually win a big game? Or are you just going to beat up on 10, average to best teams, and then your 2 losses are going to be against your 2 ranked opponents? And if that's the way it's going to be, I'm not taking you seriously anymore as a true contender in the Big Ten, a true contender nationally. You're just a team that has a schedule that allows you to beat up on everybody else, and your 2 true premium opponents, you bend the knee and you lose. Will you show up and take down a Michigan team? This is not a 4 receiver spread offense, going to throw it all over the yard kind of. This is not C.J. Stroud and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Buka, et cetera, coming in to Happy Valley. This Michigan offense is ground and pound, play action, keep it within the average. They're not a 4 receiver, spread it out, chuck it for 400 yards a ball game. You can control the narrative if you play at the line of scrimmage and you dominate in the trenches. If your linebackers tackle and your defensive backs come up and hit people and make plays and force turnovers. If you play physical and your offense can find ways to run the football and score and be Michigan and do exactly what they are, you have a chance of winning. But this is a program-defining game for Penn State. Are you going to be taken seriously as a true national contender going forward, or are you just going to be another team on the schedule in the Big Ten and get lost in the shuffle when it expands next year? This is your one shining moment, to use an NCAA March Madness term, to really make a statement and get something done. You have the home crowd. You have a chance of really shocking the world. You have a team right now currently in turmoil that might not be fully focused. Can you go in there and take advantage of the situation? But we keep hearing about J.J. McCarthy and your Heisman moment. If Michigan's going to win, you're going to need to have a Heisman moment this week or versus Ohio State in a couple of weeks. Because right now you're still on the fringe. Your stats don't look it. You haven't played really in the second half. You're probably going to play full 4 quarters on Saturday. Can you make the throws when it matters late in the ball game? Can you make that big 3rd down throw in the 4th quarter to keep a drive alive to put the game away? That's what I want to see from J.J. McCarthy. Are you ready to play a full 4 quarters in a hostile environment and get it done? Because if you know what, if you go out there and put on a show, I might actually take you seriously as a Heisman contender. Maybe you'll be in New York as one of the 4 or 5. But you have to show me here against Penn State, and you have to put something up on the board to get it done. Because right now I've just seen you just beating up on bad teams, putting up points, and you have sit on the bench in the 3rd quarter. I want to see you play full 4 quarters because you're going to need to and get it done. In the end, I don't trust Penn State. I just don't have the faith in Penn State. And that 4 points is just too easy for Michigan to cover. I think Michigan covers. They win by a touchdown. I'll say 20-13, 24-17, somewhere in that ball game. But Michigan will find a way to win by a touchdown. They won't. They will cover. And Penn State, it'll be another year of what if, and move on from there.
Fresh, you stole one of my great talking points here. Was for the Wolverines, this game means, I don't say as much as the Ohio State game, but it's pretty darn close. It is pretty darn close that it means a lot. It means more on a different sense of the game. This is the first game that you're going to have, like a real test game that you're not going to have your sign stealing dude out there on the sidelines and all that hubbubaloo. Are you able to go into Happy Valley without any of this? Because I tell you for sure, Penn State has switched up their signs. You have no idea what any of their signs mean. And are you able to beat Penn State because you're a better football team? You have a better game plan. You execute your game plan. You're just a better football team than them. That's going to mean a lot to Michigan. Because if they win this game, they're able to say, like, whatever the noise is, like, look, we're a better football team. It didn't matter that we had signs or anything like that, because everyone does that to an extent. Maybe not to the extent they did, but everyone has tried to steal signs and stuff like that. For Penn State, this is let's throw chaos into the world. Because if Penn State beats the Wolverines this weekend, they will become the biggest Wolverine fan here in 2 weeks and waiting to see them beat Ohio State. All of a sudden, you have a 3-way tie in the Big Ten. Now, it really is going to come down to, it looks like it would come down to Wisconsin and Iowa, whoever finishes better. Because if Wisconsin's finishes better, Ohio State would win the Big Ten. If Iowa finishes better, I believe Penn State would go to the Big Ten title game. If I'm wrong on that, go ahead and correct me. But I think if I understand how all the tiebreakers work, that would be how that one works on there. I actually think the Wolverines are on the outside looking in from Indianapolis. This is a huge game for James Franklin for all the reasons that you said. You didn't beat Ohio State when you had an opportunity. You played a great defensive game in Columbus, but you had a pretty poor offensive game. Now, Ohio State has a top 5 defense. Michigan has a top 5 defense. But so is Penn State. And Penn State is doing something that only them and James Madison is doing. They are allowing they are allowing 60 yards rushing a game. That's it. The next closest team is UCLA at 70 yards rushing a game. So this is an elite Penn State defense. They've been a little bit tested. They played in a hostile environment going against Ohio State. And they've had a little bit of time to look back at that game. What could we have done better? How could we have prepared better for this? And it's a home game. You're sleeping in your own bed. You're not having to get up. You're not having to stay in a hotel. You're not having to leave on Friday to check into a hotel. You can keep your normal routine. James Franklin needs this win, and he needs this. He is a desperate man. Jim Harbaugh needs this win. He's a desperate man. Fresh, I'm going to tell you this right here and now. The Nittany Lions are going to win this football game.
Woo!
And that's not me picking. I'm not picking against the Wolverines for any biases purposes. I legitimately think that this Penn State team is extremely motivated. They've been tested a little bit before. Take a look at their home games this year. West Virginia, quality football team. Not the best of the Big 12, but they're a quality Big 12 team. at home, 38-15. They held Iowa, even though Iowa has no offense, but they held Iowa and they put up 31 points on a very good Iowa defense. Indiana, that was a letdown game. But then you look last week going to Maryland. Maryland's been a tricky team all year long. 51-15 in that game. Fresh, I got a feeling about this one. I just, while I'm not willing to trust my gut on the Ole Miss Georgia game, I'm willing to trust it on this one. I'm having the Nittany Lions, and I'm going to say Nittany Lions by a touchdown in this game.
I mean, first off, noon kickoffs, as we've seen with ranked teams playing, the higher ranked team always kind of comes out a little sluggish. Noon kickoffs can be a little weird for people. And when you mentioned James Madison, I thought you were referring to beating Michigan State in basketball or applying for a bowl exemption. So that's also interesting with what else you added there by the run defense.
Yeah, because I look at this and Michigan is they're good. They are a good football team, but you take a look at their schedule. The only team I look on their schedule and say, who do you have any respect for? Rutgers has got a good defense. Nebraska, maybe. Minnesota, but really, this is going to be it for Michigan. I think there's too much noise. I think that the Penn State is going to hammer them with the Allen and Singleton, and Drew LR is going to start making some really good throws. He's only got one interception in a year. Great offensive line. He's going to be able to kind of neutralize that Michigan pass rush. They're able to do it against Ohio State a little bit, but LR didn't really learn from that game. This is going to be the game that we're going to see. Did you get better? Did you watch that tape and go, in this situation, I should have done this instead? And I think I liked him coming out of high school. I like Drew Alar. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't know. I really think Michigan's in for a rude awakening. I still would say Corum has a day. I
He
think
has to
Corum,
have a game. He hasn't
yeah,
had a true day so far this season. He hasn't had that announcement that he's still dominating. And I think
yeah,
that if they're having any chance, he has to be involved.
yeah. He's averaging less than 4 yards a carry against Indiana, Indiana, Michigan State, and Purdue in his last 3 games. Kid's barely averaging 3.5 yards a carry. So come on, you
Now,
need to see a
one thing
little more on him.
I'm gonna pose a question to you. If
Okay.
Michigan loses on Saturday to Penn State, the second game after Connor Stalions has been um, relieved of his duties, does that actually give more merit to what they were doing? Or does that just add to more of the chaos of like people are going to start jumping out of the woodwork like, whoa, you finally lost the game and you didn't have the signs. Like, how does that play out? How does that story continue to unfold in your eyes?
I think exactly that second thing happens. You want to say whatever narrative you want to make it be, but I think people will come out of the woodwork going, "Hey, you didn't you only won because of science," and you forget that Michigan was a very talented team. You
Yeah,
know,
and they were still dominating the line of scrimmage.
right?
There's certain
And
things where you have signs or certain things of execution.
yeah, I mean, guys, come on, let's not act like I know people will say like, "Oh yeah, I haven't signed." It's like, Grant, yeah, you can make adjustments and stuff like that, and it does give you a slight advantage. But the games are won and lost in the line of scrimmage, and okay, if you did wrong, you did wrong. Take your punishment, go on for it. But let's not blow this up more than what it is, and like let's just kind of move forward. Like both sides on it, like all the fans jumping on. Oh, vacate all the wins for the last 2 years. Like I hate vacating wins. We
I
all
mean,
know who won the games.
let's not vacate those wins over. There were some games they were winning regardless if they had signs or not.
Right. Right. And the other side of like, well, everyone else in the world is come on, guys. Like, yeah, everyone else is speeding down the road and you're the one who got pulled over. You were the one who got caught. Take your punishment, whatever it is. Harbaugh's off to NFL because he doesn't want to deal with this malarkey one way or another. But it is what it is, guys. Like,
Kind
I
of reminds me of Pete. Kind of reminds me of Pete Carroll, where things started closing at USC. He
yeah,
got out before they got hit with any sanctions. They
right,
had to deal with it after he was there, but he was already in Seattle. You try to like Harbaugh's maybe a little late here, but you try to get out before you become involved with all the nonsense.
right. And really, what are we talking about? We're talking about stealing signs. And not like the fact that you did it, because what you did isn't like a huge issue. It's that the way you went about it is what became an issue. But we're not talking there. When I say this all the time, it really is a victimless crime in this. There was, okay, yeah, Vegas, and they beat the odds, what have you. It's a risk you take with gambling. But, we're not talking about anyone assaulting anyone. We're not talking domestic violence. We're not talking about, you know, all the other crimes that have a victim out there that we need. We're not talking like a Jerry Sandusky situation. We're not talking anything like that. Let's pump the brakes on like ready to, you know, burn like him in effigy and like all of that, and like let's settle down here, like put the pitchforks away, put the torches away. And then also Michigan, stop trying to deflect and saying like, oh, well, look over there or look over here. Like, no, let's just be realistic about everything here. You got caught. Here's your punishment. Boom, it's over. We move forward. Yes, other people were doing things too, right? But we caught you. So I don't know.
Red-handed.
I'm just kind of over the whole situation. Me personally, I
Hey,
just kind of look at it and go,
it
all right. And that's as an
it
Ohio
just makes
State
me
fan.
really excited for November 25th when the Buckeyes head up north because there's allegations that there's a certain team in Columbus was the one hiring people, even though that's been disproven. But the angst and animosity with all on the line, that game is going to be even on a higher level for 3.5, 4 hours with a lot at stake.
Yeah, well, I'll be the one who goes, I don't care about all that stuff. I just want to see my team win. End of the day. And again, if I
It's all
was
that matters in the end.
if I was Michigan, yeah, I'd be like, yeah, so what? We made 2 college football playoffs. We did this, we got caught doing it. Okay. What do you want from me now?
Hmm.
But yeah, there it is. All right, Fresh. There's week 11. It's a great week of college football, guys. I will be back to oh, as I let off a nasty cough right there. Hopefully we can take that out. But I'll be back to full health next weekend, and we wanted to make sure that we get you another great record. But hey, before you go on, hit that subscribe button. Makes me feel better if I see our subscribers go up. It'll bring my voice back to normal. Hit the notification bell. Get notified every single time we have a new episode. Some great things going on. Make sure you're checking out Spinnable Sports. So make sure you go to spinnablesports.com. Yep, that's spinnablesports.com. And hey, Fresh, my voice is almost shot, so I'll turn over to you and let you bring us home.
Folks, got another great week lined up for us all. It's surviving advanced season for all of us. We head toward, the end of November and a conference championship weekend. So hopefully your teams can find a way to execute, get it done. Hang in there. Not many games left. Cherish every single one we got left. Enjoy college football the rest of the way. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook, spinnablesports.com, The Irrational Confidence, on all our platforms. And until next time, we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, y'all.